Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another movie spoiler review. I know it was in the midst of my February theme month reviews with, romantic slash, black movies. But I want to make sure that I squeeze this in. This is the first movie of the MCU Phase 5. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. And I've been telling my friends this, that out of all the Ant-Man films, this is the one I was like definitely the most looking forward to, because if you watch the Loki season 1 series, this feeds right on into the whole theme, not just this movie, but the whole theme of this new saga of the MCU, the multiverse saga, whereas the first 10 years and the first 3 phases of the MCU was all about the Infinity Stones, so it's the Infinity Saga and all that culminating in that. This new saga, I imagine that these next 10 years, now probably 9, is going to be so already like phase 4 or 5. By the time 6 rolls around, it'll probably be like the completion of the 10-year span of this saga. And I gotta admit, like, my quick assumptions, or at least quick thoughts of all the Ant-Man films, this is like, way better. I don't hate the Ant-Man films, just like, because people like really love the Ant-Man films. Some people like, really love the Ant-Man films, and like the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, the people like really love. They put like their top tier MCU thing. I find them serviceable. I don't get that hype for them. The Ant-Man films, I enjoyed the first one. The second one was fine. Like, they're very mid tier. If you check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl, follow me in the links in the description, as well as follow me. Leave a like and share with your friends, of course. But also follow me on my Patreon, by the way, patreon.com/talkativecarl. Follow me on my Twitch channel where I stream live with various video games. Like currently I'm going through Forspoken, Fire Emblem Engage, and Hogwarts Legacy. But also on my Odyssey channel, odyssey.com/@talkativecarl:E. You can check out like the videos that I put on there as well. Same stuff as YouTube, but that's just kind of like, in case something goes wrong with YouTube in the future, I have a backup, so you guys won't wondering where I'm at, kind of thing. Anyway, overall, like I said, like, Ant-Man 3 is the better Ant-Man film out of the trilogy, but overall, in the grand scheme of things of the MCU, it's still mid to above average. I enjoyed the Ant-Man films, but Quantumania is like, a little bit better. And Jonathan Majors, man, he is knocking it out of the park. Because first time I've seen Jonathan Majors in anything is the Loki series, as he showed up in the final episode, and I just loved his performance and the way he broke down why he invented the TVA and like the multiverse. It's like, as I mentioned in my more recent discussion video about everything that was right in Marvel's Phase 4, which you definitely should check out, by the way. And so you can, as I go through all the stuff that was in Phase 4, in the TV shows, the specials, and the movies, and all the stuff that was thoroughly enjoyable, which makes Phase 4 still you know, like, this is good. This is good quality stuff we're getting here. But some people just like, you know, I won't say in their feelings, but they're like, you know, oh, it's all over the place. They're not, it's like this all, it's not there's some things that are, yeah, disconnected, like internals with the celestial statue thing, coming up a little bit out of the ocean, and hardly, to not being addressed at all in any of the other stuff along the way since then. Yeah, that's something that you should probably kind of throw in a little bit more, because it's kind of glaringly obvious. It's not something that you can like put in like this own contained story of the internals. Only they know that. It's too big for only them to notice. Same thing with a giant celestial, coming off the horizon over London and pulling a handful of people, off the ground and not being noticed. But anyway, so yeah, like basically what I'm trying to get across, I'm keep jumping around all over the place. Phase 5, like I said, like, this is the multiverse saga. I'm really glad they really I'm happy for the multiverse saga. There are a few people out there that's like a little, weary of it, like, God, the multiverse, it's like, some people don't think it makes, might not make sense or what have you. I thought it was a good next step up, because, after like the Infinity Saga and Thanos and everything like that, how do you, step up? Multiverse seems like a right way to go. And as I brought up my discussion video about, like, the greatness of Phase 4, I think after the multiverse saga is done, I personally think, another way to like even go beyond that, get Marvel vs. Capcom saga, and because like Marvel vs. Capcom video games is like, one of the best, known, video game franchises, except for the last one, because that was sucked. Like, just the Marvel versus Capcom 1 through 3, they should focus on, and like bring in some, like, Capcom related characters, and and do this massive kind of brawl kind of thing. I don't know, this is something that I was thinking of, because that is just like, how can you top a multiverse? Well, you already established the multiverse, we already got used to it, so like, let's bring some Capcom related characters from different universes, like, Dante, Virgil from Devil May Cry, and Mega Man and Zero from the Mega Man franchise, Ryu, Ken, Akuma from Street Fighter, and Chun-Li, Phoenix Wright, from the Phoenix Wright franchise, get them all, together. That would be pretty fun. Anyway, we get Kang the Conqueror, at least a variant of He Who Remains, like I said, who we saw from the end of the Loki series, who, like I said, I love Jonathan Majors, like the way he broke down the multiverse. And I've rewatched that scene like tons of times, man, because I just love the way he just delivered that story. It's, like, one, a version of me discover a bridge between his universe to another universe, because they discovered they're stacked on top of each other. And another variant of him discovered the same thing, and they met each other. And they like, oh, I like your shoes, I like your clothes, I like your nose, etc. And they decide to utilize different technologies from each respective universe to improve upon the other. And they met more variants of themselves, and things was going good until, which I kind of feel like, smart as you are, you didn't anticipate like you might run into a variant of yourself that will be malicious, which did occur, and then it spiraled into a multiversal war between each other, each one trying to destroy their other universes to uh come out on top. So he remains was like kind of like the victor and decide to form the TVA to avoid any other person going outside their universe and causing a branch. And so, as he states to Loki and Sylvie, you may not like me or my methods with that cloud monster and like, you know, zapping people out of existence with those pruning, that was a word, pruning people out of existence and everything, and this bureaucracy kind of thing. You may not like it, but trust me, that is like the best outcome that you can get from me. I'm like the better one. Yeah, like clearly he's, you know, not, you know, good, but he was the best one that came out on top out of the other versions of him that is straight up evil to monstrous. So if you end up killing him, then all of the stuff that he worked on to keep a single timeline will come undone. Then the other Kangs will just start sprouting in various places, and they will once again spark a multiversal war. So that's where we are at this point. We now meet the, what you can call like the Exile Kang variant, where, you know, you learn that this Kang isn't looked favorably on by the other Kangs, and so don't know why they just straight up didn't just kill him, but they exiled him, and he ended up crashing into, well, not crashing, but he just was exiled to, coincidentally, the quantum realm, where it exists, as we learned from like Infinity War and Endgame. It exists even in the Ant-Man film. It exists outside of time and space, so of course it doesn't, you know, you wouldn't be affected by like the snap from Infinity War, but you know, time runs very differently. 5 hours there is 5 years in the normal world. So that way his powers, or say technology, could not help him escape. So he was stranded and marooned. So anyway, we got, and of course this movie is directed once again by Peyton Reed, who directed all the Ant-Man films, as I'm not mistaken. Paul Rudd reprising his role as Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Evangeline Lilly reprises her role as Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp. We got Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, or at least a variant of him. There's gonna be a lot more of him. We got Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang. David Dasmolchin as Veb, a slime creature. And ironically, he was voiced by a guy who was in the previous Ant-Man films as one of Scott's friends named Kurt. Because that's another thing people pointed out, which I'm kind of personally glad that none of the Scott Lang's, you know, thief friends are here. Even though, you know, they were cool, they weren't like obnoxious, but personally I didn't really care for them. Yeah, sure, he needed like a thief crew, but they ain't, unlike the Ocean's 11 films, there's nothing super unique or, you know, nothing that helped them stand out that made them like super memorable or whatever. Yeah, Katie O'Brien, who plays Jentor, a freedom fighter that is in a quantum realm, and I gotta say, she is like ripped. I mean, she is hot too, but it's like, whoa! It's like I couldn't help stare at her abs a bit. I don't know, because she, you know, had like character roles in like Agents of Shield and The Mandalorian as like a communications officer. So it's like not bit parts, but it's like, you know, supporting character stuff. But I was like, whoa, like she is like crazy hot. It's like, why I'm staring at her abs so much? It's like, I don't know. It's just like, I really liked her character, and clearly it's like, you know, when like Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars comes out, I imagine like she might come back. It's kind of like another Endgame level stuff. You know, you got to get these people who we saw established in phase 4, 5, and then 6 come in for the big climactic kind of fight against Kang, obviously. Anyway, you got William Jackson Harper as Quats, telepath. Bill Murray playing Lord Krylar. Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne. Corey Stoll reprising his role as Darren Cross, but now repurposed to be MODOK. And Michael Douglas reprises his role as Hank Pym. And I gotta say about like the whole MODOK situation, you know, first of all, I'm glad we got MODOK in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Cool. But MODOK, I mean, it's like I don't mind like the fact that MODOK is you know, because I'm pretty sure MODOK in the Marvel comics it's got a different name. The because in the Marvel comics and most other iterations, his real name, because he was originally human, his real name is George Tarleton, but they kind of combine him with Darren Cross, who was Yellow Jacket in the first Ant-Man movie. And people pointing out about the whole face is kind of weird because you can't even recognize that as that same actor, Corey Stoll, because it seems like it was like really stretched out. It didn't take me out of it, but it's like, I don't know. But you know, and MODOK has like a kind of like a unique kind of voice. You know, like two voices stand out for me when it comes to MODOK. That seems kind of very perfect. It's like if you watch my spoiler review of the Iron Man Armored Adventures TV show, MODOK shows up in that a couple of times. I loved his voice in that, but more specifically, I kind of like the MODOK voice in the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 game, where it's like talks like this, like metal organism designed only for killing. Now you know why. That voice, and it's like I like that voice. I don't know why I like that voice. It just, that is a MODOK type of voice for some reason. Cry for me. That thing, and it kind of really makes me want to get back and play some Marvel vs. Capcom just to play around with MODOK a bit. I'm not a MODOK player on that game. I never really care for his like unique way of his unique gameplay, but it's still kind of fun to have a MODOK. And another thing, MODOK is a Iron Man villain, and I want to quickly point out that it's like, just like with the Mandarin in Shang-Chi, you got War Machine with Armor Wars, and then you got Riri Williams coming up with her own TV show, and she's gonna be like a player in like in the larger grand scheme of things in the MCU. Why are you I don't know why Kevin Feige or anybody behind this stuff is giving out Iron Man villains to other characters in the MCU. And it's like, it's just same thing with like, you know, Ant-Man 2. Ghost is an Iron Man villain. If you watch my spoiler review on Iron Man Armor Wars, you can check that out on my YouTube channel. I did a lot of Iron Man comics and movies and TV shows that you know, that I covered last year. Check that out. And I mentioned in that, you know, because Iron Man has a cool rogues gallery, and you shouldn't, you know, like the MCU shouldn't be just doling out everybody else Iron Man villains, because what's left for War Machine and Riri Williams to fight? Because obviously Iron Man Robert Downey Jr. is not coming back, but you got to have, you know, it's like giving out the Shocker to Daredevil or She-Hulk. It's like, you know, like you, and it's like you can't, it's like it doesn't sit right with me personally. It's just like, it's just the same thing where like The Rock, when he said, like, when he's promoting Black Adam, oh, I want to, you know, Black Adam to fight Superman right out the gate. It's like, you're the arch enemy of Captain Marvel, Shazam. That's like, not saying like, you know, that's not feasible, but right at the gate, no. It's like, you know, when you introduce these villains, they got to fight their respective enemy that we know they normally fight. Then in subsequent stuff, you can like have like, you know, after MODOK fights War Machine in an adventure, then he might end up showing up in a later Ant-Man thing or a Moon Knight thing or whatever. That's just my personal kind of nitpick on that, because I, you know, not just for like Ant-Man, but it's like overall, I really don't like the idea of just right off the gate villains that normally fight a particular enemy is just given out to other players. But anyway, Ant-Man, Scott Lang, is pretty much like kind of, you know, enjoying life, resting on his laurels, making memoirs of his life. And, you know, like, you know, people like, you know, give him high fives, praising him and everything like that. You know, one person in like a coffee shop confused him with Spider-Man, but he's taking his stride. He's enjoying life. Everything's going well. He's having a relationship with Hope, and but other people point out, it's like, well, you're stuck in the quantum realm for 5 hours in your perspective, but it's been 5 years. You never have to experience like the fallout or devastation of like losing people and grieving. But he is, in a way, that the one thing that kind of like bothers him is the fact that he lost 5 years of his daughter's growing up. She was like a little girl. I don't know how old like she is portrayed in the movie. Let's say she's like 18. I don't know, because like, I don't know, because what, she was how old, like in the first two Ant-Man films, like, you know, like 10, 12. So yeah, it's like, you know, let's say she was 12 in Ant-Man 2. Yeah, you know, it was like 5 years of her life, you know, puberty and all this other stuff, and all those birthdays, Christmases and Halloweens and all that other stuff, all just gone. He's not going to get back. That's probably the one thing he's probably regretting. But I'm glad, like in Miss Marvel, we get like a touch of what Ant-Man was doing, you know, in like prior to this adventure. Is building like a podcast talking about his, like, you know, life and everything like that Miss Marvel follows. I thought that was really hilarious. But he soon discovers that Cassie's becomes a bit of an activist. He's letting jail and everything like that, which I thought, yeah, that seems appropriate for a Scott Lang daughter kind of thing. You know, apple doesn't fall far from the tree kind of situation. Other than, because, yeah, Scott's a thief, but what landed him in jail in the first place, if I vaguely remember from the first Ant-Man movie, which I need to re-watch and do spoiler reviews on anyway, is that, you know, he was stealing from like information from evil corporations, like head honchos, put their information out via public, and so that way they can point out like their wrongdoings and whatnot, and that would land him in jail, something like that. But Cassie, knowing about the devastation of the snap, because she didn't get snapped away, we don't know if her mom and stepdad got snapped away. Matter of fact, we don't see them reprise their roles again in the third film, which is odd. Not at least just one scene. Hope and Scott come pick her up out of holding, and they have this kind of like a slight, it wasn't like a blow up, but clearly a disagreement in the car. And I guess Cassie has like a bit of resentment that she knows it's not his fault, but she's still in that kind of like back of her subconscious resents the fact that her dad wasn't there. I won't say she resents, but just like she saw like the devastation around was happening around the world, and she wanted to like, and then when people came back, she wanted to make sure that they help people who were homeless, and because it's kind of established in like stuff like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that's like people are essentially refugees that came back and they have nothing, and she wants to help people. It's kind of like the cops and other city officials treating people like vagrants who more than likely don't have any place to live, and they're out on the street, and she's protesting and got put away in holding, which is obviously not a bad thing. Is is a very good thing that she speaking up for people who's not being heard. But then they all come together. The Scotts, the Langs and the Pims are having like this big family meal, and which is kind of out of the freaking nowhere. I think I reacted the same way Scott did when Cassie called Hank like grandpa, and it's like that's a little soon. Like, yeah, like Scott and Hope are dating, but they haven't even got married to and it's like how long y'all having this kind of like that level of relationship? That's just jarring, at least to me personally. I don't know about you guys, but then of course even then in the trailers it's established that she built this kind of like probe thing that she can send to the quantum realm, because she's been like studying it with Hank and everything like that. And I'm thinking, like, even when the trailer pointed that out, I've been saying to people, it's like, okay, when we met Cassie, yeah, she was a little girl, but she seemed like that kind of girl that, sure, girls have that phase about like Disney princesses and all that stuff, and of course they eventually probably grow out that stuff somewhat, but there is no indication she had any kind of aptitude for science. So when did that start? And it's like we already got Riri Williams and Spider-Man, and it's like not every teenager should be into science. It's like it's like you gotta have them to be like crazy smart. I don't know. It's not everybody need to be a science, especially when you're introducing these young Avengers, which they obviously are setting up. Isaiah Bradley's grandson, I think it was his grandson, from Falcon and Winter Soldier. I just hope he's not, some kind of level of genius. He should be like just average smart or street smart. We don't need everybody to be some kind of tech genius on some kind of level. It's okay to be an average intelligent person. Oh God, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I just thought it's kind of like, okay, not everybody needs to be a genius. It's okay. But anyway, like I said, we gotta set up the Young Avengers, and of course she got to have that kind of mindset. I gotta help people, and of course Hank eventually built her a kind of a Ant-Man suit, so she can grow small and big, which we see happen in like the getting close to the second act. She has her own little suit, and of course she hasn't really practiced that much with it, so she pretty much with Scott, whereas I kind of like that she get that moment where he has to teach her on the fly in this kind of fight. You gotta kind of like shrink punch or something like that. So it's cool, and it's not like of course Scott is like very hesitant, or at least against, but went from against, hesitant, then accepting. I won't say fast, but relatively in like a decent pace, where he's stunned at first and he doesn't really think it's a good idea to involve his daughter in this kind of stuff that he got landed in. But he understood, like, well, she's in it now, so I better like give her some pointers of what I learned in the first Ant-Man film, and like teach her fairly quickly, which I thought was pretty cool. Anyway, she was Cassie was showing everybody her invention and everything like that she's been working on. Janet freaks out and shuts off the machine because it was sending a signal. It's like, because she's telling everybody, like, you do not want to get involved with the quantum realm. Do not send anything there. And everybody's freaking like, why? Like, everybody's confused of why she's having this outburst all of a sudden. And of course, she just like won't. I guess she was suffering from PTSD a bit, because she doesn't want to bring up her experience while she was down there in the quantum realm. But of course, she later divulged to Hank and Hope that one day Kang showed up, thought he was like her. He got trapped down here, and he had this device that she helped him rebuild through various things that is found in the quantum realm. But he had this kind of like orb things, kind of like a battery, the MacGuffin, pretty much. Hardly any movie doesn't have one. Where when she touches it, she sees all that he has experienced, which is total devastation in different multiverses, or different universes along the multiverse, and sees like what a monster he is. He just eradicates. It's more of a graphic, hands-on variation of what He Who Remains Kang with the TVA did, which is more bureaucratic and organized way of maintaining a proper timeline. His is more, I won't say a brute force, but just very hands-on kind of a level. And of course, she takes the battery, use what little shrinking tech disc that she has, and enlarges this thing to the point of to be unusable, which further along traps him. But he managed to get at least some of his like tech on him. It's like his iconic Kang suit from the comics. At least enough for him to like create this, you know, massive city, but he's, you know, a dictator essentially, and oppressing people. So when Janet got rescued by Hank and Hank Scott and Hope, she essentially left people that she was fighting with against Kang behind. So I mean, even though she you know, was having trouble dealing with that fact, and she doesn't want to relive it, she could have at least told what she could. Like, look, there's like an evil guy down there. If you send a signal, he might pick it up, and you know, you don't want him finding any lead out of there. He needs to stay there, otherwise many universes will perish. You don't have to get into the finer details, but just laid out like this bad guy, he needs to stay in there. Do not send any signal out there in order to find him like a pathway, something like that. But the signal is picked up regardless because it was on a little too long. It's not long, it was only like maybe like a solid minute, but it's still long enough for that signal to be picked up, and it turns on again from the inside out and sucks the Langs and the Pyms inside. But Cassie and Scott went to one area, and then the Pyms went to another party area. But the look of this is really good. I mean, despite you know most if not all of it being green screen, it's still stunning to look at. As far as like the environment, it was very well done. They meet different creatures along the way, the inhabitants of the quantum realm. But here's the thing, I gotta point out, this is kind of one thing that kind of stood out. It's not necessarily a con, but it's something that really kind of stuck out for me above almost anything else. The inhabitants, I feel, they are probably no different from what you see from the aliens in any of the Guardians of the Galaxy films. Honestly, do you say to yourself, if you swapped out the heroes, or well, let's say that we swapped out, you know, the heroes, instead of like the Pyms and the Langs, and you put in the Guardians, would you really tell if you're watching a Ant-Man film or Guardians of the Galaxy film? Because honestly, this feels like the Guardians. It's like if the Hank Pym and the others are on a space adventure with the Guardians, and they bump into these crazy characters. Would you believe me? I bet you would. But then towards the second half to the third act, you realize they're in a quantum realm. You kind of, your mind gets blown, like, whoa, you're not in space. That's how I feel. It's like, it's not necessarily something that you can solve, but it's like, I don't know, it's like something about them that doesn't make them very distinct from just aliens that you probably would see in a Guardians film or a Captain Marvel film. I like the fact that you see this giant amoeba kind of thing, but I don't know, you kind of could say, like, you remember the amoeba boys from the Powerpuff Girls? We should see something like that rolling, you know, walking around talking and what have you, or something akin to that, the very microscopic things that talk and everything like that, you know, instead of just, I won't say jumbled up mess, but you know, I don't know, it just feels like, you know, we don't know much about like you know, quantum realm in real life to say like what's down there, because it's like, you know, it doesn't need to be, you know, like anthropomorphic kind of animals that can talk to you or whatever, but it's like, I don't know, it just seems like not very distinct to make it like, oh, that's quantum realm people. Anyway, Scott and Cassie get captured by refugees fighting against Kang. And they drink this, like, you know, red goo. They all end up doing it in one aspect or another, so they can understand what the creatures are saying. I kind of like that. It's like you don't just walk into a space and they just automatically understand each other. But it's just like you have to drink. 1 second. You have to drink. You know. 1 second. You have to drink this, you know, red goo thing in order to communicate. Because I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I still, you know, thought it was cool. At least you have something there to establish, you know, communication. But while I'm on the subject, I wanted to speak about the whole the comedy in this. I think, I'm not sure if it's the writers or the director himself, but it seems like they're trying to overcorrect a lot of complaints people have been having about the comedy styles in recent Marvel stuff, where especially like something like in Thor Love and Thunder, where it's like everything got to be an insert joke here, and it turns to a very formulaic thing that people are turned off by, especially when you're playing a serious moment and you gotta throw in a joke kind of thing. People kind of got sick of it. I think they kind of overcorrected a bit to now to the point where it's like the jokes, you know, they're not, I mean, like, it's not as decently paced when it comes to, like, there is a moment where you can add a joke here, but it's just, most of it's just not funny or just not landing well. Or, I mean, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. They're not utilizing the comedy at least appropriately. It's like if you're doing it too much, or it's like, you know, kind of polar opposite. Like one end of the spectrum, you got like Eternals, where it's like you barely have jokes at all, to Thor Love and Thunder, where you're just flooded with just constant jokes. And I think Deadpool is like and Spider-Man are like the appropriate middle grounds, where you have like a nice, you know, evenly placed smart comedy, whether it's dirty jokes or not. Is done in a timely fashion. Comedy is all about timing. You do too much, you know, people get like, you know, the drama gets sucked out. The seriousness of a situation gets sucked out. You do it too little, it seems dismal. But it's just like the comedy here is like average to slightly above, below average. I enjoyed it fine. I mean, like I said, it's like, as long as you don't get to the point of Thor Love and Thunder where it's like everything has to be inserted with a joke, it just like, you gotta refocus a bit. Anyway, Hank, Pym, and Janet, Hank, I say Hank, Pym, and Janet. Hank, Janet, and Hope meet up with some people that Janet met up with during her time in the quantum realm. They go to this bar, they drink the, you know, the whoever juice that helps them, you know, communicate, and they meet up with Bill Murray character Lord Krylar, who Janet had a thing with down here, because she was there for like, what was it, like 30 years. So of course, is, you know, I'm kind of glad they, you know, established that both Hank and Pym were lonely. It's been 30 years, and they both explored other options outside of, because like they're lonely, they have needs, that kind of thing, and it's understandable. But they haven't lost that love for each other, of course, and they definitely want to reunite. So I'm glad it's like a happy medium. So and then they don't bicker about it. Of course, there's obviously twins of jealousy. We're human, it's like, as understandably that Hank is a little like perturbed, but he's mature about it, and he brings up and admits on his own, like, yeah, I had like a thing with this woman, but it didn't last long because she wasn't you. And of course, this is where he did get some laughs out of the theater. Is where Hope is just in the middle of this and just cringing so hard. It's like, I don't want to hear about my parents having these flings and other needs, and I don't want to hear that. No child at no age wants to hear that, as gross. I thought that was pretty funny. It's just like Evangeline Lilly's facial expression was like really made that. That is smart comedy. That is brilliantly handled. That's I love that part. But you see like even though like people generally did not like working with Bill Murray at a certain point. I'm not sure with the ins and outs, given what we know about what happened between him and Lucy Liu on a set of Charlie's Angels, which by the way is probably one of my highest viewed movie reviews on my YouTube channel, which check it out. Eventually I will do the sequel, in the coming weeks at some point. But it's just like he is just like, just bad to work with. But besides all that, he is still an impressive actor, and you normally just think of him as a kind of comedic actor, but he plays the seriousness very well, where he just like, he was a freedom fighter working alongside Janet fighting against Kang, but as soon as she left, he just like grew essentially like, I wouldn't say bitter, but he kind of resented her, that he's glad to see her. It's like, seeing like, meeting like her husband and her daughter and everything like that. But it's just like all that charm and like swagger and all that other stuff, it's like it got toned down a bit, and he's just like, you didn't tell them, did you? It's like how like you just left us. And of course now he's ended up working for Kang, and she was like, how could you do this? You know what he's like. Well, he can be very persuasive, knowing what Kang can do to a person. And it's like he had to do what he had to do, essentially just just to survive and live. So it's like I like that scene very much. It's like when you're dealing with something like oppression and dealing with a dictator and war, and some people who were probably freedom fighters, but turn the screws on them, there might be a few that might turn coat on you when faced with the possibility of death. Some might not some might not end up like Captain America, who's willing to die on their feet. Some might choose what Krylar did, but it all depends on who they are deep down. So they fight all of them off when like Kang's soldiers starts coming in, but not before Krylar pointed out that Kang sent out MODOK to go look for his their two friends. And I just like the way he delivered the anagram of MODOK. And when they asked like, what's a MODOK? Oh, just a mental organism designed only for killing. It's just the way he delivered that. It just makes MODOK so menacing, because like he's a genius in a Marvel universe, one of the biggest geniuses in the Marvel universe, and he just don't think his intelligence has grown to the point where he doesn't seem like life. He doesn't care about life like that. where it's like it's all about science and and what comes of it, that kind of thing. It's not that too dissimilar to the way like Doc Ock normally thinks of, when it comes to treating science as like, the end all be all kind of thing. But anyway, they end up getting away, and Kang shows up and talks with Scott. And I like this from Jonathan Majors and the writers themselves, where it's like, oh, you were an Avenger. Have I killed you before? They all start to run together on me, because like all these Kangs have gone through different timelines and more often than not different multiverses and things like that. And it's like, many Kangs have killed many Avengers. Excuse me, in certain comics. So it has happened. So of course this Kang probably would just like nonchalantly like, oh, you're another one of those. So he understood coming from MODOK that, so you're a thief. So something, I want you to steal back what was stolen from me. And he threatens Cassie. And yeah, because he captured, I kind of skipped over something. He ended up, MODOK is sent out, Devastate allowed the freedom fighters encampment. Oh, and I like the part where another cool joke with these walking battle robot type of buildings, and Scott was like, your buildings are alive, and this jelly thing says, your buildings are dead. And that got a laugh out of me. That was really good. That's another good smart use of comedy. That was really good. Perfect timing. But MODOK devastates the encampment, captures Scott and Cassie, and threatens Cassie and say like, okay, I need you to go to that big glowy orb thing, go inside and shrink down and hand me this orb, because he wants to get out, and mainly to get revenge on the other Kangs that exiled him in the first place. So Scott goes through there, and he is in this kind of like at the center where time is, I guess you can say, is like in flux. So any decision that come across as like Scott's mind cause a variant of him to produce, and every time it does it, it's like it's like multiple Scotts, all these Scotts, even like a Baskin Robbins Scott. And so it's like he tried to throw some shrinking disc at the center, but I guess it's those little things is not enough to shrink. They end up burning up. But it was a cool moment. It was a cool shot where the one thing all these Scotts can agree on is saving Cassie. So they, like an ant colony, push each other together to allow the main Scott to climb up to reach that. But like I said, the disc didn't work because he needed a lot more disc to allow the shrink. But then Hope comes in, and she has like a situation with like many versions of her start sprouting. But like an ant colony, they focus on one singular goal, and all those variants come together, and they they hold hands and they gather all their discs and threw it into the center, which is enough for the shrinking to commence, and you got the small orb again. And Kang comes in, knocks Hope and Scott aside, and calls like Hank to crash thanks to MODOK. And then he takes Janet with him because he's planning on a multiversal conquering exploit. And the first thing he wants to do is go after, because after he built this all this army and all these like war machines, he's planning on like just conquering and just going after the Kangs that exiled him in the first place. And he's never explained why they exiled him in the first place. I kind of wish they maybe he doesn't have the finesse of the others when it comes to conquering, or he just doesn't listen or follow orders. Because there's 3, just like in the comics, there's well, it's 3 here. I'm pretty sure it's like 5 in the comics. I remember in like a Fantastic Four comic I was reading, and they had Kang the Conqueror involved, because in case you don't know, Kang the Conqueror is normally which is pretty much like universally kind of understood at this point if you're a comic book reader, Kang is the descendant of Reed Richards, just by probably like several or so generations. He's a descendant of Reed Richards. Yeah, that's pretty much like for a comic book fan, that's kind of understood at this point. I kind of hope that that's what Kevin Feige is going to lead into, because we're bringing in the Fantastic Four in this new phase. Pretty sure by the end of this phase, which kind of, speaking of which, I still wish they kept Fantastic Four in Phase 4. It's right there. It's like the Fantastic Four introduced in Phase 4, which was the initial idea, but after the pandemic and everything got kind of turned around and we worked, they had to move it to Phase 5. This is, I don't know. The synergy was right there. Anyway, so Kang is ready to send his fleet. Now he has the the MacGuffin that he needs. But Cassie, after breaking out Katie O'Brien's character, what's that? Starts with a J. What is it? Gentora. Breaks out Gentora, gets everybody to start rising up, and everybody starts fighting back against Kang's foot soldiers. And it's cool to see, like, Scott growing to like a giant in to their perspective, but he's still kind of small in the quantum realm relatively, and Cassie embiggens in a way, and like while she's fighting off MODOK, is kind of like cool. The fact that this guy in a yellow jacket thing was terrorizing her as a little girl, trying to get revenge on Scott. Now that she's a little older and now she can like fight back, like it's kind of like getting that kind of comeuppance in a way, because she's not a little girl anymore. She can fight back because she's not defenseless anymore. But she had this little moment, was, I want to say, kind of odd place, was kind of quick, and I don't know how to articulate it, but just like tell her, he kind of just come to Jesus moment where he tells him like, just don't be a dick. I don't know how not to be a dick. It's like, I kind of groaned at that. I was like, oh God, I don't know where this comes from. This kind of trying to solve the cross problem really fast, but then she goes, helps her father, breaks through like Kang's barrier, and they had this little hugging moment. It's like, oh, it's like hugging Godzilla. It's like, and then of course you get the callback about like growing so big, you kind of crave citrus, like orange slices. I'm not sure it's got something to do with maybe metabolism or something like that. But now Kang is started attacking people. So Hope, Scott, and Cassie's fighting off Kang, which here's the thing. I don't know if it's the suits, maybe, but Kang was vaporizing people earlier with his blue beams, with his Kamehamehas, and it's like you're vaporizing people, but when he blasts, you know, there are leads, because you can say like it's like, you know, plot armor, but it's something that kind of pointed out to me. I was like, okay, why the blue beams that vaporizing everybody else, these know nothings, but it's just like a concussion force against the three main characters. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of, at the very least, I want to see some kind of residual effects, you know, like burn marks or something on their suits, because it's, at the very least, to indicate that without wearing these kind of like protection, you get vaporized very easily. At least it has something like that in it. I don't know, that's something that's kind of stood out. But I like to see, like, you know, Cassie go big and just grabbing him, try to squeeze him, and he had to do a almighty push. If you've watched Naruto, you know what that means. And yeah, and Scott just like, you know, grows big and starts grabbing him and ramming him against the side of the wall. It's like freaking cool. But it's still too much for them when it comes to Kang and his tech. But then Hank comes in with a Deus Ex Machina with all his, you know, evolved ants that we established in the first act of the film, coming in and just like, you know, wrecking shop against Kang's forces. And then Kang has to put up a barrier while he's like getting attacked by these smart ants. And then Mona comes in, I'm not a dick, and just rams in and like breaks, you know, causes like more devastation to Kang's shield, and Kang, you know, force pushes him out, with, you know, fatally wounds him, and like, and then but Kang gets overrun by all these ants. But then like, this is kind of a funny / cringy moment here where Cross is laying down, he's dying, and everybody's just like, you know, it's like pleased that he, you know, did what he did to help them out in the end. And then he's like, he always saw Scott as a brother, which everybody got this, it's like their faces and the audience faces all, I heard somebody in an audience, in my audience, I heard somebody say like, it's just like, what? It's like, he said what we all thinking, like, that is so that, like I said, it's funny / cringy, because like that was way like out of the freaking blue. That's the most out of the blue thing I've seen in a movie in a long time, because I was like, where the hell did that come from? This is like, what are you talking about? And then he tops himself before dying. It's like, at least I could die as an adventure. He didn't have the heart. And Scott is like, he just didn't have the heart. It's just like, sure. that really got me. I was like, oh my god. I was like, okay, sure, buddy. What the hell ever. Oh my god. Oh my god, that really got me. Oh, I was like, what are you talking about, guy? And then he dies. It's like, of course, we gotta keep both along. Maybe at some point Kevin Feige will bring this character back, because he is like an Iron Man villain, and it's like we gotta have at least War Machine or Riri Williams fight against MODOK. It's kind of like, at least in my opinion, that has to happen. But they managed to open a bridge so they can finally go home. But Kang pops up at the last second and attacks Scott, and it's just like, man, you got like a extremely cut, well built, jacked Jonathan Majors fighting against Paul Rudd, who, yeah, he is fit, but by comparison, he's gonna get stomped very quickly. And there's a moment where it's like, how, being a fan of Captain America, I'm shocked that you didn't have him say the line, because he's kind of does the stance when he's getting up and he's like putting up his dukes, and it's like, you don't have him say Cap's line, "I can do this all day." It's kind of like, I thought you were setting that up, because the way his stance was the same thing you saw in Civil War when he's fighting, when Cap was fighting Iron Man at the end of Civil War. And it's like, I don't know, you kind of setting that up. But he did have that line where it's like, "I don't have to win, I just need you to lose." It's kind of sort of like Doctor Strange when dealing with Dormammu, where it's like, I'm not planning on winning, I just need to make sure that you lose. And it's like, having Doc Strange, dying over and over again, because in that time loop, keeping, which forces Dormammu stuck in that perpetual state. That means that he cannot affect the real world if he's stuck like this. But Janet, I keep confusing too. Hope comes in, because Janet in the comics is normally the main Wasp, but Hope comes in and starts doing the stinger zaps against Kang, pushing him back against the battery, which is broken from the fight, and it sucks him into oblivion, killing that variant. But we're gonna have more of Kang showing up in different movies along the way. And Scott and Hope gets to the portal and gets back home. And now they celebrate by having like this massive birthday party, and to celebrate like all the past birthdays that they missed out on for Cassie. But you hear like Scott narrate that things are going good, but then the melody of the music kind of slowed down in a more tense situations. Like, but Kang did say there was a bigger threat looming. Did I just cause like a devastation to my universe? But nah, like it's probably not a big deal. And then the music picks back up again. Then there's a mid-credit scene and then a post-credit scene. The mid-credit scene, I've been hearing from other reviewers that there's mixed feelings on, where Jonathan Majors in different reviewers point out it's kind of like an SNL sketch in a way, because like they're having Jonathan Majors in different costumes that Kang wore in the comics, and just doing like whatever. And I see their point. It didn't bother me, but I see their point, because you got Rama Tut Kang, Jonathan Majors in like an Egyptian kind of garb. Then you got someone Kang Prime or something like that, who's pretty much like the de facto leader of these three. And then there's like a one with Jonathan Majors kind of like his face kind of pulled back or something. I'm not sure, but you know, it looks like it's like this, you know, Immortus is like the prime one, Ramatut, and then the Scarlet Centurion Kang. And they point out, like, you know, they know that the Exile Kang is dead, and one of them was bitter because he missed out his chance of doing it himself. But then you see this giant coliseum with all these crowds filled with other Kangs, with Jonathan Majors, like, you know, in separate, I'm assuming, camera angles, doing different various things, kind of like, you know, because it's like a shot directly from a comic where Kang, different various Kangs are in like a coliseum, all doing different things, and they trying to ape off of that, which is, I thought was kind of fun. But they're about to like rise up and do like just like a massive conquering. But the end credits, which I imagine is shot, I got scenes shot from a scene in Loki season 2, which they're currently doing right now. They're shooting it as we speak. I'm looking forward to Loki season 2. Loki is probably my favorite Disney Plus show out of all the Disney Plus shows. It's like, you know, Loki, Hawkeye, The Mandalorian, and in some aspects, Kenobi series is my favorite Disney Plus shows. They're like the most fun personally to me. I don't really want to count like the Daredevil show because they were originally from Netflix, but it's a great show as well. Just, you know, just a de facto thing. Of course, it's included on the list, but just straight from Disney Plus originally, those are my favorite. But Loki's at the tippy top. It is really well done. I love that show. And Tom Hiddleston is amazing. And the scene is like 1920s, where Kang variant, going by the name of what was it, Victor Timely, and you see like Owen Wilson's Mobius sitting in a crowd with Loki, looking on the stage as like this Kang, and this is kind of, can't help but think this, but like, you got this black man in the 1920s trying to show off this kind of, I don't know, invention or whatever, doing this presentation among all these white people who, you know, if this is like a obviously a scene shot that they included for a post-credit for this movie that was shot that you'll see in a Loki season 2 episode. And it's like, again, that like includes some bit of kind of racist kind of tones, given the time period that they're in. But, you know, we'll wait and see how that come about when the season 2 drops. But Mobius just whispers to him, to Loki, it's like I don't know, like, you know, you make it seem like this guy is like, you know, like some kind of monster or something. I just don't see it. And Loki is like, trust me, he's the most dangerous person I ever met in my life. And it ends there. And I really love that post credit. It's like, you probably want to, it's the first post credit of the phase 5, but, you know, since out of, if you include phase 4, it's probably my tippy top favorite post credits. But yeah, some people, you know, some critics are kind of mixed on this movie overall. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's like, you know, it's like Ant-Man's normally just like kind of like a palate cleanser type of movie between like the serious kind of movies in between it. But I think this is, I've been looking forward to this because this is kind of the most important Ant-Man movie out of all the Ant-Man movies, because we're setting up Kang. This is the first time we actually getting Kang in like a big screen type of event that's, you know, culminating into something larger. Loki set him up as a precursor to something that's in a larger force. So, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's because once Phase 5 is completed, I'll go back to my MCU ranking video and start including the Phase 5 stuff, because I already got all of Phase 1 through 4, including the specials and the TV shows, including all the Netflix stuff and the Inhuman stuff, like and Agents of Shields. I got all that stuff, so you can check out how I ranked all of them. So next, after each phase of the MCU, I will go back and start ranking the rest of them into the rest of the pile. I'll do that with DC as well. Once like Gods and Monsters is that phase of Gods and Monsters completed, I'll go back to my DC ranking and start including how I rank all the DC stuff moving forward. But yeah, I mean, like, I think it's overall out of the MCU, this is like a well above average film. The other Ant-Man films, I put it in very mid tier. I enjoy them, but it's not exactly very high tier for me personally. Even though I typically enjoy heist films, Ant-Man films are not like my favorite heist films I've ever seen. They're not the worst. I still enjoy it, but they're very mid. But this one is definitely above average, because if I put the Ant-Man films, I forgot where I ranked them. It was either, it's gotta be B. I can't recall. But if Ant-Man 1 and 2 were B, I have to put this one in the A column. Hopefully I remember that by the time Phase 5 ends. But I gotta put them, like, as I'm saying this right now, I will put Ant-Man Quantumania in the A tier. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish they did better with the comedy, but I enjoyed what I got, and I love Jonathan Majors and Paul Rudd's performance in this overall. But anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Let's try to get this video to 100 likes. We're getting close to my $400 subscriber milestone. Once we hit that, I will do a Hot Ones challenge video where I will actually buy like the hot sauces from the show and try them out on different chicken wings that I will buy, and answer any questions you might have for me either via Twitter or live on YouTube, and I will do it and eat it in various stages, and like that'll be something I'm really looking forward to, but I want to make it a milestone. So let's hit that subscriber, share all this stuff with your friends. Let's try to get like the subscriber count up, and yeah, that is the goal. But anyway, I will see you guys in probably like 30 minutes, and I will be jumping on to some multiplayer games, some Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, some COD Modern Warfare 2, and some Overwatch 2. I'll play that for a few hours, because I'm not gonna be streaming tonight because I'm going out to a birthday party. So I want to get some stuff in for today. So anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit. Peace.